Good morning, and welcome to the Sherwood for Methodist Church online edition for May 24th. I'm Pastor Darrell Dexter, and it's great to see you wherever you are and however you are tuning in. It's Memorial Day weekend, and I hope that in the midst of the grilling and the chilling, you'll take a moment or two to remember all the men and women who have served our country and have made the ultimate sacrifice. Of course, I'm talking about those who have died, serving to protect your freedom and mine. This weekend, we honor our fallen heroes, and we honor the families they left behind. We honor those who return from battle, very different from how they left for battle. Many of you laid down your life in quite a different way, suffering from lingering physical injuries, amputations, chemical exposure, or the all too common emotional trauma, such as PTSD. Now, I'm very much aware that Veterans Day is in November, but we really cannot thank those who are serving or those who have served our nation enough. Well, I hope you haven't clocked me in just yet. But if you've ever gone through the difficult process of cleaning your parents or your grandparents' home after they pass, then you know the sorting through a lifetime of memories and possessions really makes you evaluate what's really important in your life. 5 years ago, my grandma Dexter died. She was my last grandparent. After her funeral, I stopped by the apartment to see if there was anything that I might want to keep as a keepsake. The clean-out process had really been underway for a while. I had been preparing for the service, so I hadn't been involved in that. And so when I arrived, there were some real treasures left, and that's totally fine with me. Grandma had already given me something more valuable than anything that she owned. Memories of the time that I was able to spend with her. I looked around for something that would remind me of Grandma, and in the midst of the mess, I remember thinking, what will I leave behind? Nothing struck my fancy until I came across several of these glasses from Gilbert's Steakhouse. It was a nice restaurant in Jackson, and I don't know the history behind the glasses. The glasses might have been some sort of promotional giveaway, or maybe Grandma just liked them and bought them, which she was known to do. If she saw something that she liked, she would buy it. Now, Grandma and Grandpa Dexter were very good with their money, but in the days before Amazon, Grandma liked to buy items that were sold on TV, exclusive TV offers, such as the Flowbee. Now, she didn't own a Flowbee, but this was the one thing that kind of came to mind when I thought about TV advertisements. You know, in just 3 easy payments of $39.99, you can own this Flowbee. Call now and we'll just throw in an extra Flowbee. But hurry, supplies are limited, and you don't want to miss out. Well, these glasses reminded me of the few times that we would eat with Grandma and Grandpa after church. It was kind of a nice place, kind of expensive, so we wouldn't eat there very often after church, but it reminded me of the times that we would spend eating dinner after church, or occasionally for a Dexter Christmas meal with the extended family. Well, I have to also say that the glasses were a lot lighter than Grandma's bowling ball collection. At one point, she had more than 40. You heard me right, 40. 40 bowling balls. So the glasses, they were a little bit lighter. Anyway, some families decide to have an auction if there's a lot of stuff. How many of you have been to a family estate auction? I see that hand. Instead of calling it an auction, we could call it a remarkable redistribution of relics. You know, we can learn some valuable lessons at an auction. For example, lesson number 1, don't store up treasures on earth. For this, we turn to James chapter 5, verse 2. Your wealth is rotting away, and your fine clothes are moth-eaten rags. Any of you have a favorite shirt, maybe a t-shirt? It's so comfortable. You have it broken in, seems to conform to your body. So what if it's a little threadbare? So what if your wife has unsuccessfully tried many times to throw it away? Do you cringe when it ends up in the dryer? You empty the lint trap, and sadly the remains of your dear friend are there. Well, James reminds us that everything, including our favorite shirt, is on borrowed time. In Matthew 6:19, Jesus said this, don't store up treasures here on earth where moths and rust destroys them, and where thieves break in and steal. Store your treasures in heaven, where moths and rust cannot destroy, and thieves do not break in and steal. Wherever your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will be also. Jesus reminds us that nothing on earth is permanent, and that we're not to really focus on the here and the now, but the there and the then. And what we should be storing up are the things which are eternal. Things that the Bible, things that Jesus' teachings say are important. So what are you storing up? One time, I went to a 3-day auction in Indianapolis with Sarah and her mom. Now, we only went for part of one day. We were not there for the full 3 days. We were hunting for chairs to go with an antique table that her mom and dad had bought us, which we still have, by the way. The ad in the newspaper said hundreds of chairs. Well, what we found was a barn stacked from wall to wall, from floor to ceiling, with wood chairs, none of which were worth anything but kindling. The couple who passed away had the intention, believe it or not, to restore and refinish all of those chairs and sell them. Obviously, that didn't happen. But I can tell you what did happen. The chairs in that old barn were so deteriorated that most of them were worthless. Things of this world will fade away. So lesson number 1, don't store up treasures on earth. Lesson number 2, your life is not measured by how much you own. You know, one time, Jesus was asked a question by a man whose brother was trying to probably weasel him out of some money out of their parents' estate. Does that sound like a familiar story? That's not anything new, is it? But listen to Jesus' answer when this man appeals to Jesus to be sort of a mediator. We find this in verse 15 of Luke chapter 12. Beware, guard against every kind of greed. Life is not measured by how much you own. There used to be a bumper sticker. He who dies with the most toys wins. Well, I've got one better for you. The one who dies with the most toys still dies. I've done many funeral services and attended others, and I am yet to see a U-Haul in the funeral procession. I've never seen a U-Haul trailer attached to the hearse. It just hasn't happened. You can't take it with you. God's word is true. Our life is not measured by what we own. If it were, some of us might be in big trouble. Let's be honest, the desire to acquire distracts us from what is most important in this life. In all the times that I've been at someone's side on their deathbed, not once have I ever heard anyone say, you know, I wish I'd spent more time at the office. You know, I wish I could have gotten in a few more rounds of golf. But I have heard them share regrets that they had. Well, I mean, we know this to be true, don't we? Working for stuff and acquiring stuff keeps us from what is most important in life, from what matters most. Well, enough said on lesson number 2. Life is not measured by how much you own. Lesson number 3, our life is but a vapor. It passes all too fast. James chapter 4, verse 14. How do you know what your life will be like tomorrow? Your life is like the morning fog. It's here a little while, and then it's gone. It's always amazing when there's like a 2-hour delay in school and it's so foggy, but within a matter of time, that fog has lifted and it's gone. That's a great image that James uses to describe our life. You know, we know that our milk in the fridge has an expiration date. It's going to expire, but none of us know when we will expire. And life passes all too fast. On the outskirts of a small town, there was a big old pecan tree, and it was just inside the cemetery fence. One day, 2 boys filled up a bucket full of nuts and sat down by the tree out of sight and began dividing the nuts up. 1 for you, 1 for me. 1 for you, 1 for me, said one boy. Several more pecans dropped and rolled down toward the fence of the cemetery. A 3rd boy came riding along down the road on his bicycle, and as he passed, he thought that he heard some voices from the cemetery. And he slowed down enough to investigate, and sure enough, he heard 1 for you, 1 for me. 1 for you, 1 for me. Well, that totally freaked out the boy, and he tore off on his bike. He didn't get far down the road before he met an old man with a cane hobbling along. Follow me, said the boy. You won't believe what I heard. Satan and the Lord are down at the cemetery dividing up souls. The man said, beat it, kid. Can't you see that it's hard for me to walk? When the boy persisted, the old man hobbled slowly to the cemetery. Standing by the fence, they heard, 1 for you, 1 for me, 1 for you, 1 for me. The old man whispered, boy, you've been telling me the truth. Let's see if we can see the Lord. Shaking with fear, they peered through the fence, but saw nothing. The old man and the boy gripped the wrought iron bars of the fence tighter and tighter as they tried to catch a glimpse of the Lord. At last they heard, 1 more for you, 1 more for me. Well, that's all. Let's go and get those nuts by the fence and we'll be done. They say that the old man made it back to town before the kid on the bike. Well, our life is but a vapor. It passes all too fast. James says our life is like the morning fog. It appears for a little while, and then it's gone. I can't recall which anchorman on ESPN it was in Sports Center, but if a player had a minor injury, and it was uncertain as whether he'd be able to play the next day, he would say something like, Tom Brady has a high ankle sprain and is listed as day-to-day. But then again, aren't we all? What a great reminder. We are all day-to-day. Last Sunday, my cousin had a good friend and co-worker die suddenly at his recently purchased home. His wife thought he was taking a nap, but he was gone. He was gone from this world, leaving behind several young children. My cousin called me when he found out at work on Monday, and he said in disbelief, I just talked to him on Friday. Maybe you've uttered those words, maybe you've heard those words. We all know that we will not live forever, and yet our world is rocked when it happens. Dear ones, we have no guarantee that we're going to be here tomorrow or even later today. But death is not something to be feared if you're right with God. Heaven is an incredible place and something to look forward to. But what can we learn at an auction? Well, lesson number 1, don't store up treasures on earth. Number 2, your life is not measured by how much you own. And lesson number 3, our life is but a vapor. It passes all too fast. Well, don't store up treasures on earth because you can't take it with you anyway. Your life is not measured by what you own because stuff only distracts us from what's really important. And our life is but a vapor. It passes all too fast. So trust God with your life and make the most of each and every day. I suspect that all of us have had more than enough time the past 2 months to be reminded of what is important in life and what is not important. A pastor shared this quote with me that he had found on Facebook, and it's worth pondering. In the rush to return to normal, because aren't we all anxious to get back to normal, use this time to consider which parts of normal are worth rushing back to. I think that's a great question. It's a great question to ponder. It kind of asks the question of what's important and what's not important in life. Well, author and missionary E. Stanley Jones, also alumnus of Asbury University in 1907, said this: "The universe in its inner structure is made to be Christian, and the Christian way, being the way, is written into the nature of everybody and everything. And if you or I act in any way other than the Christian way, we act against reality. And when that happens, we will work to our own ruin." Well, if I can take the cookies and put them on a lower shelf, I think that E. Stanley Jones is saying that when we put God first, everything else in life has its proper place. And then and only then can you fully enjoy life. Then and only then can the people that God has placed in your life and blessed you with, can you cherish them and have them have their proper place. And when you put God first, you have stuff, but your stuff doesn't have you. Your wife or your husband, your friends, your job, your grades, your home, your hobbies, none of them were ever designed or equipped to take the place of God. All of those things can be good, but none of them were meant to be God. In fact, they're poor gods with a small g. God was meant to be God in your life and mine. His way is the way, as E. Stanley Jones speaks of. Now, I'm just a simple country preacher, but I think I'm just crazy enough to believe that when we put God first, everything in our life falls into place and has its proper place. When we put God first, we can live with a careless disregard for the future of what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't have to worry. We don't have to have anxiety. We can live free of regrets because we're living the way that He intends us to live. And we will have stuff, but our stuff will not have us if we put God first. And the people in our life will be cherished, but not worshiped if God is first. So, will you put Him first in your life today? Well, this public service announcement, we completed our final fresh food distribution through the South Michigan Food Bank. More details will follow, but we hope to progress with them and start doing a monthly distribution at a later time. But all those details have to be worked out, but just know that there will be no more fresh food distributions on Friday moving forward. May His peace rest upon you today and always as you put Him first. God bless you.